The Atlanta Falcons are quietly having one of the most impressive off seasons in the entire NFL, building an absolutely scary defense in the process. The Falcons are coming off a year where they went 7-10 and they haven't finished with a positive record since 2017. With that being said, I do believe that this could be the year the Falcons finally get over the hump and pull off an incredible season in 2023. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything that the Falcons have done this offseason and what they need to do next in order to shock the world in 2023. However, before we jump into the video, make sure you guys smash that like button. It helps out the channel so much. Let's see if we can get the video up to 300 likes. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will be covering the Falcons and the rest of the NFL all year long, so join the family. And lastly, comment down below who is the most underrated player on the Atlanta Falcons roster right now, in your opinion. But without any further ado, let's jump right into the video. Now, before we go into a deep dive of all the signings that the Falcons have made to start this offseason, let's take a look back at 2022 and see where the Falcons needed to improve most coming into this year's offseason. Now, offensively, the Falcons were very middle of the pack last season, and obviously changes needed to be made. To be fair, though, they didn't have a cemented QB1 throughout the entirety of the season, so I do believe that whenever Ritter steps up and is the number one quarterback, which it looks like it's going to be this year, I think that will help the offense overall build. Now, last year the Falcons ranked number 15 in points per game, number 24 in yards per game, number 14 in red zone scoring percentage, and number 18 in touchdowns per game. Like I said before, they didn't really stand out in other major offensive category last season, but what I do believe is when Ritter steps over or steps in to be that starting quarterback for the entire preseason, the training camp, mini camp, and all of that, I do think it will overall help build the team chemistry and improve the offense as well, just going forward. Now, let's take a deeper look at where the Falcons struggled the most. Now, Atlanta had one of the most successful rushing attacks in all football last season, ranking number 6 in rush yards per carry, number 2 in rush yards per game, and number 9 in rushing touchdowns per game, compared to their passing attack, which was very underwhelming, ranking number 24 in completion percentage, number 16 in pass yards per play, number 31 in pass attempts per game, number 13 in interception percentage, and number 26 in sack percentage. So obviously, when you're passing the ball, when you're running the ball so much, and the top two worst teams in terms of passing the ball, you're very, one-dimensional, and teams can predict what you're going to do offensively, which I think, helps other defenses prepare or scheme against your offense. So I definitely think the Falcons need to maybe pass the ball a little bit more in 2023, but I do think that with their run game being so good, they got to utilize that as much as possible, with Ritter being, kind of a two-dimensional quarterback. He can pass the ball, he can run the ball, he can do a lot. I do think that they should be a little bit more of a well-balanced offense. But like we said, the passing attack needs to be worked on a lot, and it needed to be developed coming into this offseason. And as I said earlier, a full year of Ritter quarterback should help overall, but the offense needed to build a stronger offensive line as well as bring in some wide receivers. So let's take a look into some of the moves that they made to start this offseason. Firstly, bringing in a tight end 2 in Jonnu Smith. Although Jonnu, or I think it's Jonnu, might be Jonnu, whatever it is, Jonnu Smith is coming off a bad couple of seasons with the New England Patriots, but he's still a very reliable pass catcher and will be an immediate impact player, down the field threat, and overall playmaker when he has the ball in his hands. I expect the Falcons to explore a lot of ways to get both Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith on the floor at the field at the same time, and I do expect them to run a decent amount of 2 tight end sets going forward. Overall, Jonnu's career, he's put up 169 receptions, over 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, while averaging about 10.9 yards per catch. Next, the Falcons brought in former Raiders wide receiver Matt Collins, and I actually really like this move a lot because he's coming off a career year in Vegas, and will add a big body who can go up and has a tremendous catch radius pretty much at all times. Although it's not a flashy name by any means, I do believe that Falcons fans will fall in love with the big catch factor that Mac Hollins brings to the team. Now, in 2022, Mac brought in 57 catches for 690 yards and 4 touchdowns, while averaging 12.1 yards per catch. I think Hollins and Drake London will be a good 1 and 2 wide receivers going forward. But the Falcons also added former Bucs rotational wide receiver Scotty Miller. Now, for me, Scotty Miller is solid, but I do think there's a lot more that needs to be done to this wide receiver core going forward. But I do like Scotty Miller as a player overall. I think he can come in and, again, be a rotational guy. Maybe not a 3-down receiver by any means, but I do think he can come in and give you, a couple of good plays here and there. Be a nice little wide receiver 3. Over Scotty's 4-year career, he's brought in 74 catches for about 924 yards, 4 touchdowns, while averaging about 12.5 yards per catch. Overall, I like the moves that the Falcons have made, but still, like I said, have a ton of work to do offensively. But on the other side of the ball, the Falcons have drastically improved. Now, before we jump into the defense, make sure you guys smash that like button really quickly if you're enjoying the video so far. Subscribe if you're new. I will be covering the entire NFL offseason, which includes the rest of free agency, the draft, trades, whatever goes down in the NFL. I got you guys notified, so make sure you guys have your post notifications turned on so you're notified every time something happens in the NFL. But let's talk about where the Falcons defense ranked compared to the rest of the NFL last season. Now, in 2022, the Falcons ranked number 21 in points allowed, number 26 in yards allowed, number 31 in third down conversion percentage allowed, number 13 in red zone scoring percentage, number 16 in touchdowns allowed per game. Now, some of these stats aren't horrible, but again, definitely need to be improved on going into the offseason. Now, let's take a deeper look at where they struggled the most. Now, the Falcons were actually pretty terrible in both stopping the run and slowing down the passing attack, ranking number 19 in rush yards allowed per attempt, number 23 in rush yards allowed per game, and number 17 in rushing touchdowns allowed per game, compared to their passing defense, which was even worse. Number 26 in pass completion percentage allowed, number 29 in yards per pass allowed, number 25 in pass yards allowed per game, number 25 in interception percentage, and number 32 in sack percentage. So overall, they were very bad defensively. But the good news is the Falcons absolutely dominated this offseason by adding a ton of playmakers over their defense. Now, most notably, let's talk about safety Jesse Bates. Bates has been known as one of the best safeties in the game over the last few seasons, and will bring that style of play over to Atlanta, who desperately needed a defensive culture change. Over his 5-year career in Cincinnati, he's tallied up over 478 tackles, 326 solo tackles, 3 forced fumbles, 14 interceptions, as well as 43 pass deflections. Not only are the Falcons adding a big-time playmaker, but they're adding someone who will come in and completely change the secondary, pairing up with a guy like A.J. Terrell and Casey Hayward. From there, the Falcons added another dominant defensive lineman in former Raven Calais Campbell. This news just broke today, and this was a major steal. Yes, Calais is getting up there in age, but the Falcons have a shot to win the division this season, and Calais will, help them out so much in the trenches. Over his career, he's tallied over 809 tackles, 584 solo, 99 sacks, 16 forced fumbles, and 3 interceptions. Calais is going to drastically improve this defensive line going forward, and we can already see a solid team shaping out over the first 2 weeks of free agency. But the signings didn't stop there. The Falcons also added 2 very impactful defenders to this front 7. First, let's talk about David Onyemata, a guy who the Falcons stole from the Saints and will come in right away and become a reliable interior presence next to Grady Jarrett and Calais Campbell. Onyemata over his career has rallied up 244 tackles, 134 solo, 23 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 19 run stuffs over his 7-year career. The Falcons also added former Bears defensive lineman Eddie Goldman, another guy who can come in and provide depth and get some valuable reps in rotationally for this Falcons team, who now have a very deep and strong defensive line. Over his 6-year career in Chicago, he has 174 tackles, 116 solo, 13 sacks, and 10.5 run stuffs. This Falcons defensive line is not only good, it is scary, and there's still a lot of time to improve even more. However, we aren't done just yet. The Falcons also stole another former Saint in Caden Ellis, who's also coming off a career year with New Orleans, putting up 78 tackles, 43 solo tackles, 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 9 stuffs in 2022. They also added Tay Davis from the Browns, who will also add some much-needed middle linebacker depth behind Mykal Walker, and also added former Vikings corner Mike Hughes as well. Overall, this defense is looking absolutely stacked. But like I said many times in the video, the offseason is nowhere near over, and the Falcons still had a lot of work to do to improve this team going forward. When you look at the overall defense, I like what they have in David Onyemata. You got Calais Campbell, Eddie Goldman, Grady Jarrett, Lorenzo Carter, Troy Anderson, Mykal Walker, Caden Ellis, AJ Terrell, Richie Grant, Jesse Bates, Casey Hayward, D. Alford. You got Mike Hughes. You got Tay Davis. I mean, this defense looks absolutely stacked. Offensively, they got good guys. They made some good additions, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But like I said, the next thing, or let's talk about the next thing they need to do to, make sure they have a great season in 2023 is they need to prioritize moving forward and adding to their cornerback room, their wide receiver room, and the offensive line needs to develop a lot going into 2023. They need to be able to protect their quarterback. But with that being said, their four biggest needs coming into the offseason was defensive line, corner, edge rusher, and wide receiver. And they have definitely solidified two of those positions and most likely are going to smash the other ones in the draft. Let me know in the comment section down below, who do you guys want the Falcons to draft in this upcoming draft in April? And who are some other guys you would want the Falcons to maybe look at signing in the rest of free agency? Now, looking at their wide receiver core, you see Drake London, you see Matt Collins, and Scotty Miller. But after that, there's not too much to be seen. Frank Darby, Jared Bernhardt, Josh Ali, and Rashawn Henry. I mean, there's not too much there. The Falcons need to prioritize getting a wide receiver or two in this draft going forward, because if they don't, I'm going to feel bad for Desmond Ridder. Listen, I like Kyle Pitts and I like Jonnu Smith a lot, but you need some wide receivers that can come over here and just produce right away. So if that's either going in free agency and grabbing someone or in the draft and grabbing someone, they need to do something. I like Cordell Patterson. Maybe he, converts to a wide, or not converts, but goes back and plays a little bit of wide receiver here and there if they don't add any wide receivers. But like I said, wide receiver is a big need. But with that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, join the family, and I'll keep you guys updated with whatever news happens in the NFL. So join the family, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.